want what, Maharaj? Again, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Bhajo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Acharya ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Giri Govardhan ki jai. Jai Princeton Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadara Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Jai Hari Rama Sankirtan ki jai. Jai Go Premanandi Hari
Jai
Hari.
Sripad Bhakti Maharaj ki
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Bruce. Are you a Christian or Catholic? So in the Bible, Christ says somewhere.
Hallowed by thy name.
No, that's also. But it says, wherever two or more are gathered in my name, I am also present. You know that from the Bible? Yeah. It
Two
says,
or more are gathered.
wherever two or more are gathered together, there I am also.
Quite interesting.
Yes. So he also taught Sankirtan 2,000 years ago. Not only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And 500 years ago, that picture on the right is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's an incarnation of Krishna. He came and taught this chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And his appearance is going to be in next week, 21st, Veterans Day celebration. And he appeared about 500 years before. Just at the time Columbus was discovering America, he was discovering the higher realms of spiritual reality and teaching that to others. And this time, and this age, current age of the universe, the people of this time are very, let's say, not very elevated in their spiritual thinking. So it's called the age of Kali. Rather, they're engaged in terroristic activities, criminal activities, fighting one another, and making everyone depressed. So many things are going on in the current age. People are exploiting the resources of nature, exploiting one another, and like that. So, how to bring a civilized mentality to such an age? That was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's purpose for incarnating, to bring back a more sacred religious sense of existence, the transcendental nature of our lives as human beings and of all life. Not only human beings, all life, the whole of nature is also part of that transcendental, has a transcendental side. We give this sign here. All the science and all the scientists in the world together can't make a blade of grass, a single blade of grass. Scientific knowledge is supposed to be so advanced. Yet if we think about even something as simple as a piece of grass, how wonderful it is constructed. We think it's just some photosynthesis, some cellulose, some carbon, some oxygen, put them together and you get grass. No. No scientist can do that. No scientist can create life. And they can't create human life by chemicals. They can't create a mosquito by a combination of chemicals, nothing. Yet they say they understand everything by chemistry and physics. Isn't it? That somehow there was a big explosion and all those chemicals somehow mixed up and they formed everything we see around us today. How do you go? I'll show you. Everything that we see around us today, it was from an explosion of some chemicals. Like you had an explosion in a chemistry factory and everything came from that wonderfully, magically came out of that, right?
There was nothing and suddenly there was an explosion.
I'm sorry?
I said there was nothing and then suddenly there was
And then
an
suddenly there was
explosion.
something, right? So, anyhow, that's the scientists tell us. They don't give much hope for anything deeper than that. They're just a bag of chemicals interacting with other bags of chemicals. And that's life. So, anyhow, that's the kind of degradation that the current society is facing. dog-eat-dog world, trying to make as much money as you can, live with as much gadgetry and whatever you can grab from the environment, and extort the environment at all, so that you get the maximum joy out of your life, and forget about future generations or anything else, or the planet or whatever. And if we should run out of things here, we can go to another planet and find another place to do the same thing. Not very high level thinking. Philosophy is almost dead. The scientists are telling us we don't need philosophy. We only need science. We need technology. Previous times, that was never the case. And they understood the value of philosophy. One book I'm reading now is called The Birth of Theory. Birth of Theory. That theory has replaced philosophy. Theory. You know what theory is? Theory is, I think it's like this, I think it's like that. Doesn't matter that it makes any sense or not. Big Bang, fine, you know. Evolution, everything came by chance. And selection, no problem. No philosophy. You guess something, full hypothesis, you make a guess, and then you try to work things out like that. Philosophy is not like that. Philosophy tries to understand the basis of things. Starts with the most basic concept, and then tries to develop everything from that.
It does not, philosophy does not, stand on a fixed thing, the way science looking into.
Huh?
Science want a fixed thing actually.
They want a fixed
Thing, something,
fixed thing.
That's it, that type of thing, But, philosophy seems to be, more, kind of a developing kind of, approach, which is not there in, deterministic, way of, looking into things.
No, we have to start with some kind of, they want to be rational, but right, reason is not a material, something that you can base on mechanics. Mechanics may be rational in a certain way, but that is not the whole of rationality. So how to understand how can a world like this come into existence? So philosophers have understood there must be something, that some intelligence, something is there to make it the way it is, to be the way it is. Not that it just came out randomly, like an explosion or a mushroom or whatever. There's something more to it. And life is not just a combination of chemicals, a very simplistic idea. They can take, like I said, they can take all the chemicals in the world and combine them and whatnot. You take all the scientists, put them in the most sophisticated lab money can buy, and let them make a piece of grass. Let's see. They can't do it. They can't do it. Something so simple. And yet they are proposing so many big colliders and whatever they're trying to do. Going to Mars and investigating the soil there. And everyone thinks, wow, they're so great. But how do you explain what the grass you're all talking about? If you are so great, why can't you explain this? Or how life came to be on this world. So the ancient philosophers who understood so many things that we are just learning about today, reading about India, in the philosophy of India, which is what we study, the Veda, called the Veda. Veda means know or knowledge. So we try to study what they were saying and apply that in our current existence, and see if we can form a new conception of reality that makes sense to us as living beings, not as bags of chemicals. Humans have a certain intelligence, certain rational ability that are not possessed by all creatures, no doubt. But humans have the ability to understand things like religion, God, philosophy, science, and other living entities, lower living entities don't have that level of consciousness or intelligence. So the human form of life is a very special existence in this universe, because they can inquire about these things. What is the origin of things? should be able to understand that life is not just a combination of material elements. Material elements in themselves don't possess any life. And that's the meaning of material. Just things. Things are not thoughts. Thoughts make up a person. Thoughts and things are two different entities, two different existences.
Is the thing a product of thought, we can say?
Huh?
Is the thing a product of thought?
And the thing, a product, yes. Actually, that's the way it is. A thing, the two words, thing and think. Thing and think. Why are they so similar? Think
No,
and
in
think.
English.
Huh?
Not in every language.
I'm sorry?
It's only in English they say.
Only in English.
No,
No, in German also.
no,
Thing and thing.
not in
Thing?
Slavic languages.
In German, it's thing.
Slavic come from Sanskrit and it's totally different.
But in German, it's that way, and in English, it's that way. I don't know what it is in Spanish. Thing and thought. What is
No,
it?
different.
Different?
Yeah.
Total.
What is it in German, Spanish?
Thing is pensar.
Huh?
Pensar is think.
Pensar and
Thought,
huh?
it's like
What is
some
it?
like consonants. But it's
Consonant.
like a different word. It's not the same.
And yeah, in some languages it's the same. And not the same, but they have similar sound. So closely related. So thing is is a thought thing. It is produced by a thought. When you say electron, for instance, what is electron? Electron is, first of all, it has to be an idea, a concept. Then you can talk about it. If you don't have any concept of electron, then what do you mean by electron? Must be the concept, the thought must be there first. Then you can talk about the thing. So everything has a concept behind it, or a thought. You can talk about it. But now they want to say that the thing gives rise to the thought, rather than the thought giving rise to the thing. Then, the neurons in the brain give rise to thinking. How does electricity produce thinking? That's a problem.
So Maharaj, here, when you say thought is producing a thing,
Huh?
thought produce thing, then the thing in itself, or anything, is it a product of thought, or it has its own existence?
In a sense, it's a product of thought, because first, like I said, you have to think it before you can talk about it. So the thought comes first, in that sense.
Is the object that
And when you say the thing in itself, you're talking about the thought in its immediate form. After you think the thing, then it becomes an immediate, something that you take for granted. When you talk about a thing like the house. The house, as you may say, how is the house of thought? But it has to be a thought first, a concept, before you can make that right. If you don't have a concept of the house, how you can build? What are you going to build?
no, the things that we are producing is one thing, but say the things like say sun and moon. So people are thinking them
Well,
as thing
they
also.
are produced also, but
Yeah.
not by us.
Yes.
They are not produced. They had to come from somewhere.
Okay.
So the scientists will say, well, it just came from an explosion again. They answer the question. That's not how it comes. So everything has an origin. And according to Veda, that's a subtle. Come from a subtle, and then it becomes gross. So first of all, there's the idea. That's Plato's philosophy, actually. He said everything exists in the world of forms,
Ideas.
or ideas. That's the original origin. The archetype has its place there. And then they come, and there's some kind of a reflection on that thing. It's like you have a mirror, and you have the thing that's reflecting in the mirror, right? Now the thing that's reflected in the mirror looks just like the original thing, but it has none of the properties of the original thing. The reflection in the mirror is made out of glass. The thing that's being reflected there is not made out of glass. Or in the water, the tree that's reflected in the water. The tree looks like the tree that's standing there, but it's all wet. It's just water, like that. So Plato's idea was that there is a world of ideas. That is the real world.
And it is shadow world.
All that we see and existing in this world is a reflection of that. They had that analogy of the cave. You know that analogy of the cave? That some prisoners were sitting in the cave and they were looking at the wall, and there were some people walking behind them, and then a fire behind those people. And those people's shadows would then reflect on the wall, and the prisoners who were chained to that cave, they could only see the shadows walking by on the wall. And that became their reality, because they couldn't see anything else. They just saw the shadows. They thought those were the people. They were shadow people though. The real people were being reflected in that. Yes, philosophers have studied these things. What is the nature of reality, and what is the nature of this world, and how they differ, and how they are produced from one another. We don't know. Just like you see the shadows moving on the wall, and you think, well, how are those shadows moving? What are the laws of physics governing those shadows? And you try to figure everything out in terms of the shadows. But it's not going by those principles whatsoever. Okay? The principles of movement are not coming from the shadows, they're coming from the people. So in the same way, we're moving. We're people, we're moving. But what is moving us? The personality, the consciousness, the atma, the soul. That is what matter doesn't move on its own. It has to be moved by something. So what is that force? What is that principle? What is that agency that is moving these bodies? Not by the laws of physics. You send a cannonball up in the air, and it goes by the law E equals M, F equals MA. It moves slow. Yes? Hello?
Yeah, I'm not finding the place.
Oh. Where are you located?
I'm on Nassau next to the church. And it shows my map shows it.
Next to the church. Okay, I'm going to send someone out there to get you, okay? I'll send someone there. You're right in front of the church on Nassau Street.
Yeah, I found 20, okay, I found professional building. Is that it fine?
Yeah. When someone is coming out there, they're going to meet you, and they'll take you to the office, okay?
Okay.
Okay, you wait.
I'm friend of the office now.
Yeah, you wait there. You wait there, and I'm sending someone out to meet you. Is that okay? So we have to understand that the movement is not going by these bodies. It's going by the soul, the power of the soul. That is moving matter. Otherwise, it doesn't go on by itself. So then we have to, if we want to search for these things, we have to look beyond the matter. We have to look beyond the shadow. You can't just stay within the shadow world and think you can understand everything from that level. We have to rise to another level. And that the scientists don't do. Philosophers try to do that and try to understand that. But the materialists, people who are interested just in what's going on in this world and how to exploit the resources of the world, they cannot ever even take the time or make the effort or even know. We're not even educated about these things. So they don't even know that this must be done or how to do this and what that subtle thing is. We're all taught is just by going by the laws of physics. If that's the case, then where's the free will? Where's the purpose of life? Where's the meaning of life? So all those things are missing. These are important things for a human being to understand. And so they must look to these other places. Anyhow, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came 500 years ago to teach. All right, meditate. Learn how to meditate. Learn how to see what's beyond this agitated plane of existence, plane of agitation, plane of confusion. There's something, mantra means to release the mind. The mind, mana atara. To release the mind, get free from the mind actually. Mind is creating all this illusion. And if we can go above the mind, above that delusion that's being created, for whom is it being created? For whom is the mind creating an illusion of things, or an idea of things that is completely off the mark? For whom is that being done? That is the mind. That is the soul, the self, the real self. When we identify with this body, we think ourselves to be the body, but we're not the body. You can't be chemicals. You're not chemicals. There's something else. There's a person there. There's a thinking, feeling, willing. Even those things, though, are ever of the mind. And above that, there is the consciousness, who's aware of those things. And so, to get to that plane, you can't use the mind. You have to transcend the mind, actually. Go above. So meditation, Hare Krishna mantra. To meditate on the highest thing, that is Krishna. And that's what we do when we're chanting. We're meditating on the highest position, that highest thing, that we should always be focusing on anyhow. Because even we are not the ultimate mover, you know? In the Lord's Prayer says, thy will be done. Not my will, thy will. So there's a higher will, a higher actor, a higher agency, higher principle, even ourselves. That's what we're meditating on. That's the Hare Krishna mantra. We're trying to explain the Maha Mantra. Have you ever heard this mantra before?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. That is what we're doing. Trying to teach, trying to learn this and practice this chanting, meditation. Try to understand these things. Come to the transcendental plane of existence. That is where our real existence lies. Not in the material field, not in the world of shadows, but in the world of reality. We think this is the reality, but it's actually a plane of confusion, a misidentification. There's a plane of reality where we actually exist, where I have my identity, you have your identity. And that plane is far different from this one.
So when we say, Maharaj, the thinking creates thought. Thinking produces the thing. When we say, then in that case, the finite thinking can assume as if everything is coming from my thought. But it is not so. Is it the philosophy of Descartes to think like that?
Something like that. But we have to understand that thought is not mine. Thought belongs to everyone. Or nobody can make claim to that. It's another kind of identification of the self with thought. That's all we can say. We are conscious of it. Just like you come in this room, you didn't make the room actually, you're just conscious of it. Or the trees. So the thoughts are there, the trees are there, and we are conscious of them. We become
But
conscious.
you said that a thought doesn't belong to you, it belongs to everybody.
I'm sorry?
You said...
Thought belongs to everyone, just like the trees. Anybody can see the trees.
But how can you see a thought that is right now in my head?
You're conscious of it, not that you can see it. You can be conscious of it.
Now, I am conscious of it, but you say that was a particular thought, that it belongs to everybody.
Yes,
But
everybody can have the same thought you have. Just like you said, you think rose of a rose. Everybody can think of
But if I'm thinking about some abstract,
Okay. They can think of
Notion.
that also. Anyone can think that as some abstract thing. Mathematics, 1 + 1 is 2 is very abstract.
yeah.
Anyone can think
But
of that.
like at a particular moment in time, let's
Yeah.
say.
That's
Um,
your
um,
particular, yes,
see,
in
my
this
particular-
sense, thought is there, say, as the universal. Anyone
Uh-huh.
can think any
Of
part
the
of that.
same thing
So
somewhere else.
anyone can think any part of it, but they're all different consciousnesses,
Mhm.
finite consciousness. They can think any part of that. And that makes up the individual, the particular persons.
Maharaj.
They're all different from one another, but the thought is universal.
Maybe
Very
that
well.
is why sometimes when we read some scientific books, we see that two scientists that live on different sides of the planet came to the same theory or
Sometimes that
conclusion
happens.
or something,
Right.
like invented something, and they say, well, I didn't know that he was working on it at all.
And that was
they-
one.
Can't you compare-
philosopher, one psychologist who thought of that. He called it synchronicity. Carl Jung. He thought of that. That this Carl Jung, he called it synchronicity, synchronized or synchronicity.
I'll tell you one interesting thing. I read a long time ago
Okay.
they called it Lazarev mirrors. There is some kind of an apparatus, but there is also people were thousands away or 5,000 miles away
Uh-huh.
from each other. So there was a group of people in this apparatus. It was like a cylindrical thing, and there were mirrors, and they were thinking of something. And another group of people who didn't even know about those, right? They were in another apparatus or whatever, and they so they could read the thoughts of those people who were there.
You can compare it to a TV
But
signal,
they were
right?
not clairvoyant
If you have a
people
TV
at
signal.
all. It just there was something in that apparatus.
I see.
They put there random people,
Oh, I see.
just like you and I. They just put there, and they said, and they recorded what these people were thinking, and those people who were there, they
In our-
recorded what they
But
were.
generally, everyone thinks differently,
Yeah.
but what they're thinking belongs to a universal sphere of thought, just like trees. Not everyone sees the same trees at the same time, but they're there for anyone to see if they come there.
If you have a radio
So those
signal,
thoughts are there also, and anyone can come there when they're interested to go.
if you have a radio signal, right? Any radio can tune into a radio signal,
Like that.
and they can say, "Oh, look, this is my sound," but you're just tuning into a signal that's broadcasted to many other things, and any radio can tune into that same signal. So it doesn't belong to any individual radio, but you can channel it.
Whatever your interest is, you'll go to that channel.
Yeah.
But that means that we're not the thoughts, we're the consciousness, we're the awareness of it. Understand? The thoughts are not you, the awareness is the you.
I also want like my personal feeling, understanding, because like, it happens so many times in life that I'm thinking about somebody, and I'm thinking, well, I need to call this person. That person calls me on the same day.
Happens many times.
This is reported by Sheldrake also. Rupert Sheldrake,
Children, yes.
he reported this phenomenon.
Exactly. So these things are there. Anyhow, like I said, most people don't realize these things, don't understand them. They never even think of it, they never even heard of it. But when you identify with a particular thought, that's how you develop your ego. That's how your self comes into being. Because you think in a certain way, and they think, I'm thinking this, like Descartes, I think, therefore I am. And you're much more than that. And your identity lies with in consciousness. And that consciousness is consciousness of something. The consciousness of the finite things of the world or finite thoughts of the world. Something much higher than that. And Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was an incarnation of God, incarnation of Krishna. He taught that you meditate on this Maha Mantra, the name of Krishna, the names of Krishna, the names of the Lord, and you try to make that your object, that highest thing, make that your object of consciousness. And it will take you away from all those limited things that are not you. only limitations your consciousness that you're focused on, based upon your desires. You have all desires, and simply try to meditate upon the Lord and what He will direct you toward, how He directs your existence. That is your real life. Life is sat-cit-ananda, eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. And we have turned away from that foolishly because we don't know. And we're educated not to study those things, not to become aware of the things, not to even think they exist. Miseducated, I should say. That's what's going on today in the name of education. I mean, you can learn how to be a doctor, how to be an engineer, how to be an accountant, or, whatever. But that's not our real occupation. Your real occupation is surrender to me, Krishna says. You have a relationship with me. Do I answer the question?
Yes, so out of those thoughts, how can you make them like more positive thoughts than, the thoughts that you get, they could be either positive or negative, right? So how can you consciously make the decision to think positive?
What did she say?
The thoughts can be positive or negative. How can you make, consciously positive thoughts? That's what she's asking.
Don't think about thoughts. First of all, like I'm saying, the thoughts are not the thing. That's not what we want to become conscious of. The thoughts are there, but we want to become conscious of Krishna. Just let the thoughts go whatever way they want to go. That's not the important thing. Krishna is the important thing. If you can think of Krishna, it'll all be positive. Everything, the whole world will change for you. And you won't have to face any problem ever again. Understand? It's the thoughts that are giving us the problems. But you're not, if we can understand that you're not the thoughts, that you're just conscious of them, they're not you. That's what you're conscious. Like I said, you walk around here, you see so many trees, you become conscious of them. They're not you. They're there, right? They come when you're walking, all of a sudden you see them and they're there. So the thoughts are like that too, like so many trees that you come in contact with. So you have a higher identity than that. And your identity is with Krishna, with God. That's what Mahaprabhu is teaching. And you try to focus on that. And as soon as your mind goes to thinking of certain thoughts, you think, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I like that. That's the most positive thought you can have. There's no more positive thought than that. Understand? That will include everything, and you'll be perfectly situated, perfectly aligned with who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. And everything will come to you. Everything will fall into place. And your life will become perfect. Yeah? How do you prove something like that to anybody? Unless you do it, you can't.
I can give you an example. It happened to me yesterday. I was on the court and one person behaved really rudely towards me. I don't want to recall everything, but whoever witnessed, they kicked him out of the building for his behavior. But the thing is, when I actually sat down on the court, I sat down and I started chanting. And while I was interacting with him, I noticed that I interacted on totally different level that I would have been several years ago. And I actually shared this with my friend today, another coach. I told him what happened, and I said, my behavior was 50% better than I would have reacted and behaved in the court interacting with him if I would not, practice what we practice here, and and I was able to sit down and totally calm down and just put it behind me.
So, I mean, it's like any scientific endeavor. If you want to prove something, you have to do it, right? You have to experiment. So this is a scientific process also. You may say, well, it requires a lot of faith to do what you're saying. But, you know, when you do it and you get the result, you understand. It works. It has some validity.
You have